All right, today on The Explainer, we're diving into a worldview from a channel called Promethean Updates. And what's fascinating is how they take things that seem totally unrelated, like, say, international naval disputes, a local election, and even the news you watch, and weave them all into a single cohesive story. So, let's see just how they connect all those dots.
I mean, think about it for a second. A naval standoff in the Strait of Hormuz, an election result in Virginia, and the nightly news. What on earth could possibly link those things together? Well, according to the worldview we're looking at today, they're not separate events, not at all. They're actually seen as different fronts in one massive global conflict.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get to the heart of what they see as the main conflict. Then, we'll explore how it all supposedly unfolds on the world stage, in our own backyards, and in the information we consume. And finally, we'll look at the urgent call to action this whole perspective leads to.
All right, let's get into it. At the absolute center of this entire worldview is this massive clash. But it's not what you might think, not your typical left versus right. It's much bigger than that. It's about two totally opposite ideas for how the entire world should be run.
So here they are, the two sides in this big fight. On the one hand, you've got what they call the American system. The idea here is that every nation should be sovereign, independent, and focused on its own growth and people. But on the other side, you've got the British imperial system. And they describe this as, well, a kind of global network of financial control that's really just designed to pull resources and wealth out of those same nations.
Okay, so let's start with the first battlefield, the global one. And for this, we need to talk about Iran. According to this source, the whole conflict with Iran, it's not really about what you might think, geopolitics or nuclear weapons. Nope. They say it's all about money. It's about who controls the world's financial system.
And this quote right here really nails their point. The argument is that all this naval pressure on Iran, it isn't really a military move at its heart. It's an economic strategy. The whole goal, they say, is to break a key choke point that's being controlled by the powerful financial interests in the city of London. London's Wall Street.
So, they argue that this constant manipulation creates something they call a terror premium. It's basically a hidden fee, a little extra cost that gets baked right into the price of oil. And where does it come from? From what they describe as deliberately manufactured, nonstop conflict in the region. Conflict, they claim, that ends up making the global financial system a lot of money.
And they get even more specific. They point to the Brent futures market in London as the mechanism. They say this is a speculative market that just tacks on an extra 8% to the price of gas, an 8% that has nothing to do with supply or demand or actual oil. In their view, it's pure financial gamesmanship that you and I end up paying for every time we fill up the tank.
Okay, so that's the global piece. But now, let's bring it all back home. Because the argument here is that this isn't just some far-off battle. It's happening right here in our own domestic politics. And the key example they use to make their case is a recent election in Virginia.
So, drawing on comments from the former president, they paint a very specific picture of how that election went down. The story goes like this. All day, it looked like a clear Republican win. The energy was there, but then, right at the very end, it was suddenly overturned. And the reason they give? A suspicious and massive drop of mail-in ballots that changed the whole outcome.
But it's not just about the ballots. They also talk about what they call massive deception. The speakers really focus on the governor's background, pointing out that she's a former CIA operative. And they suggest that this background in, deception, was used to craft a fake centrist image to fool voters. Okay, so this is the crucial link, right? You have the story about Iran, you have the story about Virginia. How do these narratives get created and pushed out to the public? Well, the source claims there's a coordinated war on information, a war designed specifically to control what people think and to, in their words, manufacture consent.
And to explain how this works, they reach back into history, to a CIA program called Operation Mockingbird. They hold this up as the original playbook for media control, and they argue that today, that same playbook has been privatized, it's been replicated by a kind of alliance between British intelligence and those same global financial powers.
And the philosophical root of all this, they say, goes back 100 years to the ideas of a writer named Walter Lippmann. The core idea? That the general public is, frankly, too stupid to make decisions. And because of that, a smart elite group has to create a bubble of propaganda to steer public opinion in the right direction. So after laying out all this, the economic battlefield, the domestic one, the information war, where does this all lead? What's the point?
Well, this is where the source makes a very urgent call to action.
The focus is squarely on the midterm elections, and the message is clear. A skinny little win isn't going to cut it. To beat what they see as this entrenched imperial system, they say they need a massive, overwhelming mandate from the people. They're telling their audience to overcome what they call internal sabotage and to think of themselves as more than just voters, but as soldiers in a war for the country's future.
And from their point of view, the stakes are just incredibly high. They're basically saying that if they don't get that huge, decisive win in the midterms, their entire agenda's at risk. And it would lead to, as they put it, very severe problems for the whole country.
So when does a political story stop being just a story and become a full-blown worldview? Maybe this is it. By connecting the dots between global finance in Iran, an election in Virginia, and the media you consume, this source isn't just offering opinions, it's offering a complete lens for seeing the world. A lens where everything is a battle in one single epic war.